Hi, I'm Tracey L Fisher. Welcome to a reentry point of view unapologetic. I'm here with my main man, Councilman at Large, Derek Green. How you doing today?
I'm doing good, Tracy. How you making out?
I'm good, man. It's a great thing to have him here. Let me tell y'all a real quick story. Before he even thought about running for office, I used to have an office out at 58th and King Sessions, Maya Recreation Center. And I used to have a lot of individuals coming home from jail and stuff. And Councilman Derek Green, then just a concerned parent, just come through and check on us.
Right.
And he used to come and give the guys motivational speeches and everything. And ever since he became councilman, right, because we was out there helping him run, he still will come through if I call him, if I need him. And I like that about him. So I just want y'all to understand who I have sitting here. In an elevator speech, let my audience know who you are.
Well, Tracy, it's a pleasure to be here. I mean, I appreciate the work that you do. I think the work you do inspires me to continue to do what I'm trying to do in City Council. In fact, I have a staff person that's dedicated just for jobs, helping people who are returning citizens, trying to do what they need to do, because that's the big issue in our city.
Right.
I mean, we have a lot of things happening in the city. We've had an election, but we have poverty. And what are we doing as a city to really help people to enhance their lives and improve the quality of life, not only for themselves, not only for their family members, but for their immediate community? And once we start doing that, then we can build our entire city. Because we've had a lot of pain in the city over the past number of weeks, past number of months. This COVID-19 has been something that none of us have ever could have anticipated, but it's impacted so many people in so many ways. Not only from loss of life, but also loss of jobs and opportunities. So we really got to do more to address that. So the fact that you are doing this, having these conversations unapologetically, is what we need to do in our city. So.
I like that. And the person in his office is Donna. And what's Donna's last name?
Donna Clement Jackson.
Clement Jackson.
Right.
And she calls me all the time, and she sends me individuals from Councilman Derek Green office for reentry, for help, drug and alcohol treatment, mental health care, everything. And I love it because when she called me, she started laughing. I got a couple for you. I'd be like, what you got for me, Donna? What you got for me? But she always be like, listen, let me explain the situation.
Right.
And this is what we do, and that's what we do. We help them and keep it moving. And that's what I want all the council people to understand, that Gateway to Reentry is there for you. We're not there to do anything against you. We're there to take stuff off your plate. We understand you got a lot of stuff to do. So when reentry come, because when I was incarcerated, I wrote a lot of council people. I wrote a lot of council people. Only one person responded, and that was Janie Blackwell.
Right.
Then, that was the only person that ever responded. I wrote them all. So
that
yeah.
was Janie's perspective.
So let me hit you with this, then get right into it. In the urban community right now, it's in chaos.
Right.
It's in chaos. Lack of education, especially right now where you have to be on Zoom and kids have short attention spans.
Right. And you have to have access to technology because not everyone has the resources.
Exactly. How you feel about that?
Well, it's an issue. I mean, I look at what happened in the school district. We still have probably about 15,000 households that still don't have the access to technology they need. And I think about my own son. Now, many people know I have a son on the autism spectrum. So that was a real challenge in March to get him from being in a classroom for other children that have a learning or physical difference like autism to now having him online and try to continue that education.
Wow.
Now, we worked through that. And now a lot of programs that he's doing, either not through school, but also through LaSalle University where he gets speech therapy. He also goes to a program at St. Joe's and even does a music class. But this was all online. And for a number of young people, especially those that have an autism background, that was a challenge. And then you look at other households like you talked about who may not have the resources or technology to actually be able to go online. Let's also think about those parents and those households who didn't have the blessing to be able to work from home, who had to be a frontline worker or essential worker. Many who got exposed to this virus, and it impacted them in their households, and then some who may even lost their jobs. I think about the hospitality community in the city of Philadelphia. We've grown a lot of jobs, but a lot of people lost jobs because people are not having conventions and other activities at our hotels. And so this has all been an impact that we've got to figure ways to kind of work through and provide services. When I think about our office, and you talked about Donna or Tanya Woods, who just focuses on providing jobs for those who are either coming from the returning citizen or just need a job, that's what we need to do. We are a public servant, and we're supposed to be serving people.
Right.
And that's what it's about. Because it's not about someone being in office with a title. It's about what are you trying to do to help people. Because before I was elected official, as you said, now I'm the father. And I often say the most important title that I have is father. And what am I doing to try to make my son and others like him have the best quality of life they can have in our city?
Well said. Well said. And I understand because my children are grown, but everybody that follows me on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, they know I have 12 grandchildren, and I'm in their lives. I'm in their lives. I'm not.
We need that. We need that.
Yeah, I'm not just pop. You just
Right.
come over. I'm in their lives. I mean, education wise, political wise. I'm talking about they soldiers, right? And I talk to their parents a lot, and they got to sit there and they got to keep them online and focus and stuff like that. Now you see there's over 15,000 households that's
Still
not even
understanding.
equipped.
Right. They still don't
Right.
have access.
So let's say we give each household 2 children. So you got 30,000 plus children that's not right now at this moment receiving any type of education.
And when you think about those households that do have access to internet, and if you have a mother or a father who is actually working with a frontline worker who actually has to go to wherever they're working, is at a grocery store, XYZ, they can't be there every day to watch their child be online. So you have another issue. What type of education are our children getting in this pandemic? And that shows the disparity. You see some of these private schools out in the suburbs where they've been able to have physically distanced and have people actually on campus. We don't have those resources. So how do we continue to foster the education opportunities to make sure that our children don't get further and further behind? And that's a concern
Let me ask you this. Is it true, because I don't know, you're in a better position to know, that public schools receive, was it Title I funding, right? Is it true that private schools also receive some of that funding?
Well, it depends on the type of funding and type of service you were talking about. I mean, from my perspective, one of the big challenges we have in the city of Philadelphia, not just Philadelphia, this is a Norristown issue, Coatesville, Erie, Reading,
Pennsylvania,
across the Commonwealth.
Okay.
When you look at how we fund education in Pennsylvania, we have one of the lowest funding formulas compared to other states. Most states, when you look at how we fund education, they provide much more resources at the state level. Even in our state constitution, it says it's the responsibility of the General Assembly, which is our state representatives and state senators, to provide a fair and equitable system of public education to benefit the citizens of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. So when you look at how funding is, how the funding formula is done in Harrisburg, it doesn't provide that. There's no reason why we have the issues that we have in Philadelphia, in Norristown, in Erie, when we should be providing more dollars from the state to our local schools. And that's part of the challenge. I mean, part of our challenge is that we fund education based on real estate taxes. And if you look at the city of Philadelphia and you look at some of the value of our homes, we're not getting the level of resource that we should. There's a lawsuit that's been working its way, that's now the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, that's challenging that funding formula. And it was basically school districts around the state saying we should be funded at a different level. And those other states that have that same language in their state constitution, the state provides a lot more resources for education. And to me, our children are our most vital assets. The future of our city, our state, our nation is based on our children. So why don't we not put in the resources into our children to make them be the best that we can? Because at some point, this beard is going to get a lot grayer. I'm not going to be able to walk as much as I can. And I'm going to be relying on younger people in reference to our Social Security, all of our systems, to help continue this city, state, and nation. So we need to look at how we invest in our children. And when you look at other countries, they do that. They make that investment. We don't. And I think that's a problem.
Right. Now, I tell you this. When I went to vote this election, they had questions on there, right? And one of them was about the school board thing, about having a committee from the communities, though, something like that, And I voted yes for that, though, because right now a lot of decisions has been made from people. First of all, let's say that wasn't even from Philadelphia. 1, 2, don't even have children in the system.
Right.
But they making decisions on our children and grandchildren. And that to me was kind of unfair. So what you just said about Harrisburg and our state representatives and stuff, right? Now I go up there a lot. Right, and I go up there unannounced, and they be shocked, and I knock on all their doors, even if they're not there. They get a note. Tracey L Fisher came through. Oh yeah, Senator Williams get a kick out of me.
Gateway was here
all day long, because I go up because they see I saw something up there that the average voter in the city that don't go up there didn't see. Let me tell you what I saw. I went up there with State Representative Joanne McClinton. That's my girl.
Joanne.
And she fight passionately
Right.
for us. She
Reverend
really
Joe.
does. She really do. And I was on the floor with her. And you can't take films on the floor, right? So I'm standing there, and she was giving a speech. And it was about the urban community, especially her district. And it was about schools, but it was about other things as well. And the whole body of the Senate, of the state representatives, turned their backs and started talking to each other. And even the black ones. And nobody didn't tell me this. I saw this.
Right.
And I was so upset. And I looked at her, and she was so used to it, she just continued her speech. And you know when they turned around? When she said, in conclusion,
Right, then they're like, okay.
they turned around and she applauded, they applauded, and she came down. And she tried to calm me down. I couldn't believe it. And from that day forward, I lost so much respect for them because of that, especially the black ones. Because y'all supposed to be together up there. Y'all supposed to be together up there. Even to show the support, they didn't even do it. They don't even know I witnessed on that level of that though. And I'm saying to myself, that's why every community right now is in poverty right now, right? Because of stuff like that. Because we won't come together as a team, as a unit, and move out and get it done. It's people that votes for these individuals, right? And vote with them because they think they doing something, because when they come down here, they don't know the treatment they get when they up there. So when they come down here, they like little celebrities to them, I guess, right? And we'll do a turkey giveaway, a Coke giveaway, a book bag giveaway, and a Thanksgiving dinner or whatever, stuff like, oh, you might could call them on some personal stuff, right? And you think it's okay. No, it's not. And I couldn't believe that. And you've been up Harrisburg, and I'm quite sure you've seen at different levels of the racism up there, and you've seen at different levels of how we allow it because we trying to be fit in, and we'll continue and allow it to go on. What's your opinion on that?
Well, I think we just got to respect people for who they are. I mean, if someone is speaking, I don't care what shirt, tie, suit, whoever your background, you should respect someone. I mean, my dad's always had the perspective that, you know, if someone gives you a call, you return their call. I mean, just basic, but those basic common decency things we have lost. I mean, you talked about your 12 grandchildren. I'm sure you're instilling in them what it's like to be a man or a woman.
Absolutely.
And although at times, I know because I got a lot of nieces, and I've gone with all the different boyfriend situations, all that stuff, it may seem like they're not listening, but they are. Because maybe a year from now, 2 years, maybe 5 years from now, certain things you'll see them do, and you're like, I don't remember telling them to do that, because they're listening and hearing. So that's why I go back to my point about young people. By us providing the information and instilling that guidance, they're going to act and lead us into the future. And so when you have that type of disrespect, what you saw in Harrisburg, those are things that we should not be having. I mean, if someone is speaking and having a speech in the General Assembly among the various members of the House, the 203 members of the House, they should at least give that person a common courtesy to listen to their point. Even if I don't agree with you, you should give them the decency to listen to their point.
Absolutely.
Because I'm the type of person, I have my people know in my office, I have an open door policy. I talk to everybody. People, regardless if I agree with you or not, because you never know, in that conversation, you may get some information that you were not ready to hear or not think you're going to hear. So I think too often people make assumptions. Well, this person is this way or that way. I mean, for example, Council President Darrell Clark and I kind of have a running joke, because at times he's been called Darrell Green and I've been called Derek Clark, because they just see 6'3" black men. Now, we don't look alike, other than we're both tall and we work in city council. But people make assumptions because they see a black man of a certain height. Now, when I'm not in City Hall, not wearing a suit, I'm just a black man walking down the street. And so we gotta treat people a certain level of humanity that we don't do, because we're so quick to judge and put people in a box based on what we think their background is. And I think that's part of the problem. And that goes back to your point of people not having that respect for their own colleagues who have been elected, just like they've been elected, making a speech in the General Assembly.
Absolutely, well said. And I'll ask you this question. With the gentleman, Mr. Wallace, that's been shot by the police officers, and then the rioting of tearing up our own community After that, what's your opinion on that? Your
Well,
thoughts, anyway.
you know, the Walter Wallace killing was really impactful for me. And I say that because having a son who's 19, who'll be 20 next year, and the fact that he has a physical learning difference like autism. Now, my wife and I have a card in his backpack that says his name, has our cell phone numbers, our email addresses, and he's always had that with him. Now, he's not always going to be with me or with my wife. There's going to be times that he's leaving school or going some type of trip or something. And I can only imagine the pain that that mother had and seeing her son die like that, and the fact that it called to the police for assistance dealing with a mental health issue, and the fact that I have a son who's 19, black man in the city, and they're not going to say, oh, that's Derek Green's son. That's just 5'8" black man who may be acting differently, and I'm not sure this person is a threat. And I can imagine, what if he was in a situation where a police officer came in contact with him and he tried to go in his bag to get that card, and they're thinking he's moving aggressively and he gets shot. On top of that, we as black men, we've had the talk with our children. We know that if they get stopped by the police, there's certain things they have to do that other people, other ethnicities don't have to deal with. I can't really have that same level of talk that my dad had with me, that I've had with relatives and nephews, with my son, because he has that learning difference of autism. So that's something that I always have in my mindset, that when he leaves and he's going to school or going to some activity, we're not going to be there. What would have happened if he had that situation? So when I saw that body cam footage, and we had a chance to see that at the Roundhouse, it really was impactful to me, because I'm thinking, what if my son had been in a situation where something was happening and an officer said, stop, don't move, and he was trying to get information to tell the officer who he was, and in him doing that, he's viewed as a threat and he gets shot and killed. And there's been a history of that in this country. I think of Elijah McCain in rural Colorado, young man on autism spectrum, who had a similar tragic death in an interaction with the police. And so these are things that, when I go back to my point, my most important title as father, that I think about. Am I thinking about how can I be a better advocate for those families who are dealing with those issues, who are dealing with that challenge and pain of not being able to have that talk with their child, and the fear of what happens if they come in contact with the police, and because of what happens in that situation, their life could be tragically lost. And it's something that is painful. And I'm someone I've had uncles on my mother's side and my father's side who are both in police officers. Who are both police officers. I was in the DA's office at one time. So I've had interactions with public safety and with law enforcement. But at the same point, even though I've had that history and background, I still am a black man in America. And I know how people can view us if we're not in a suit, and even if we're in a suit, in that type of perspective. And that's what it was so painful to see, that death of that gentleman and that mother crying out in that pain when she was trying to get assistance for her son and relying on our system of public service to do that and have that outcome. So that's what, when I think about that situation, and my wife often says she can't get that woman's voice out of her head because of that situation and other mothers having that issue.
And also, the second part was the rioting and looting they did in their own community, tearing down their own community.
Well, part of that is a frustration of the history we've had, but also you have some people who are taking advantage of situations, which is unfortunate. I mean, when you see what happened in response to the tragic deaths and killings of Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, and George Floyd, what happened at 52nd Jefferson, a shopping center that took years to get developed by neighbors in the community, to get that shopping center. That Lowe's that's at that shopping center, 52nd Jefferson, was the first urban Lowe's in the nation. Wow. And for that to get looted, and you also have Jeff Brown ShopRite, and we know the work that Jeff Brown has done with people from all different backgrounds, not just hiring people who are returning citizens, but also providing entrepreneurship opportunities in his stores. I've been to his stores throughout the city where he's actually worked with entrepreneurs who want to provide a food product and put those products on his shelf to give them an opportunity to become an entrepreneur. So when you think about that and the work that was done, and that, some people just took advantage of the situation. They saw that the police were downtown, so we're going to organize and say, listen, we're going to start looting. And that takes away from the real First Amendment issue and cries out that people have to see a man, die in 8 minutes and 46 seconds. I mean, we had a rally in front of the Octavius V. Cato statue right after that happened. And we actually kneeled for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. And when you go through that time period, you realize that is a very long time. For someone to have someone's knee, I mean, that tells you the inhumanity someone has to do that on someone's neck for almost 9 minutes.
With other people standing there watching.
Exactly. You want to see someone do that to an animal, let alone a human being.
Right.
And that's part of the challenge we have in this country.
And I ask you this right here. I saw in the Daily News, right? They had all these people in the Daily News. They had Sherelle Clark?
Sherelle Parker.
Sherelle Parker. I apologize. Sherelle Parker. They had Helen Jen. They had Alan Dom. They had it was a Spanish lady. I forgot her
Maria.
name. Aunt Maria. They had Derek. They had you, Derek Green, and there's somebody else I'm missing.
Probably Isaiah Thomas.
Was it Isaiah Thomas might have been in there.
Press conference, right?
Right. Okay. Well. Now these are all the people they had as potential Democratic mayors candidates. Whether y'all said it or not, this is what they blast out there. Is it any truth to that?
Well, the mayor is term limited, so he can't run again. So we're going to have a new mayor that will be sworn in January 2024. For the first time in a long time, you don't have any specific front runners like we've had in the past. Like, before Jim Kennedy became mayor, he was an at-large member of city council. People were looking at Council President Dale Clark, is he going to run? State Senator Anthony Hardy Williams, is he going to run? You had City Controller Alan Bukovitz. But this is kind of put us in a point where it's kind of wide open. And it's at this point you're going to see this generation of leaders who are kind of Gen X, who are younger, have a different perspective. And so I think it's going to be interesting. And we don't know what's going to happen in the future. No one could have predicted COVID.
Right.
And that
Absolutely
has impacted every aspect of the world. And so from my perspective, I'm just going to try and do the best I can, try to help people in the city of Philadelphia. I mean, as an at-large member of council, I try to get out to every neighborhood that I can, from the far northeast to southwest and everywhere in between, try to hear what the issues are, and we'll try to continue to serve the people in the city.
Right. The most important thing any politician can do is literally speak the truth to the people. And if you don't know, I don't know.
Right.
And see, that's the human part.
Right.
Because you're dealing with human beings.
Right. And I would actually say even more important than speaking the truth is listening.
Listening. Absolutely.
Because I tend to try to listen more, because it's not for me to jump in to a neighborhood and say, I know what you're feeling, because I don't know. Even if I grew up going to Canaan Baptist Church in Germantown, but I'm not living in Germantown right now. I live in Mount Airy. So it's hard for me to say, yes, I know Pulaski and Winona. I've seen the changes in that neighborhood over the years. Haven't been a member of Canaan for close to 40 years. And I have a long family history when it was Little Canaan, near Chew and Belfield to where it is now. But I can't speak for what's happening in Pulaski and Winona right this second, because I'm not living on that street. So it's more important to me as someone's elected official to listen. And also, when I say listen, actively listen, not listen from the perspective of, okay, I know what you're going to say. You're going to say X, Y, Z because I know what you've done in the past. You should be actively listening to what that person had to say, because that way you can listen and hear and may give you some more information. Going back to my point earlier about having an open door policy and talking to people, even people I disagree with, because you can learn something. And I think that's what, it goes back to your point of the civility and people talking, not listening to Representative McClinton in Harrisburg, the fact that you're working with your 12 grandchildren. We have to listen to people and listen to their perspective, and not just listen for the sake of, oh yeah, I hear you, but actively listen and think of, okay, what is this person talking about, and what's their background, and what can I learn from them, and not just project what I think I know.
Right. And with that being said, tell my audience how they can get in touch with you, right? And we'll close out after that.
Okay. So once again, I want to thank Tracey for the opportunity to be here with him, and it's always a great opportunity to listen to the information you provide and the great work and service that you're doing in our city. The best way to reach me, you can reach me for a lot of different ways. You can always send me an email. My city email address is Derek, DEREK, .green@phila.gov. People can also reach me on Facebook at Councilman Derek Green. I can be reached on IG or Instagram and Twitter at Councilman Derek. Also, you can do the old school way and call my office at 215-686-3450.
And there you have it. I'm Tracey L Fisher, a reentry point of view, unapologetic. Councilman Derek Green, Councilman at Large Derek Green. Thank you.
Thank you.